Here we go. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Bunch Podcast. Here with my boy Rafa Rusi. Rafa, how you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling really good. Feeling great.
Glad to hear that.
Both of my little girls and my wife went to Spain to spend some time there. So I'm going to have the house all to myself. That hasn't happened in a long, long time.
Wow.
So that's going to be nice.
You got some projects lined up? Or?
Yeah, I got tons of things. We're going to talk about some of them tonight.
Cool.
We're going to talk about, well, you hear it when we talk about it, but we are going to talk about some projects that we got coming up.
Fantastic.
Well, cool. I wanted to take a quick moment and just thank everybody that's been supporting us everywhere on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and all the other platforms that you can listen to podcasts. We've just been getting so much love from everybody. I want to go ahead and just read a quick comment. That was pretty cool. Jeffrey Palfini posted on YouTube. I think it was the episode with Mark Firth, episode number 2. So this was a really cool comment. This was great, y'all. Well seasoned and the perfect length for draining a bottle of wine. Look at that.
Shout out to the Boondocks Film Society.
Yeah.
That's Jeff's project.
Yes. It was nice to hear the love for the dearly departed Dreamaway Lodge and the inimitable Daniel Osman at the very end. It and he will be missed. Speaking from the diner, drinker, sometimes collaborator side of the fence, we have to enjoy places like the Prairie Well, Cantina, Mooncloud while we can, and honor the tremendous and relentless efforts that go into keeping their doors open as life-giving community gathering places.
Preach.
Oh.
Yeah.
Preach.
These are the people making the Berkshires and its neighboring communities the special place that it is. Yelp that, motherfuckers.
Yelp that, motherfuckers.
That was a nice little...
Honestly, can we throw up a little one of those prayer emojis or something on the video stream right now? Because that's a nice little bit, both for us and for those that are working hard. I appreciate that. So definitely, as Rafa said, give us a follow on Instagram. Give us a subscribe on one of the platforms of your choosing. Get that thumbs up button for you boys and soon girls. And we are excited to be back, fueled. I've always felt like when the customer engagement is at an all-time high, and when people are actually sharing their appreciation, the work gets easier. You start to get a little bit more looser, start to have a little bit more fun, which is exciting place to be in as we're getting a rhythm, and we're excited to go ahead and have our next guest on tonight. Rafa, why don't you introduce our next guest? You got a nice little vocal stream going on tonight.
Yes. Tonight we have with us Casey Rothstein-Fitzpatrick, who's here with us. Casey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. I want to say KCP, but it's KRP. Those are your initials, KRP?
CMRF.
Oh yeah, CMRF. All right, not as awesome as it sounded in my head as you were spinning. Yeah, okay. KMRF, welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast show, man. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, with all of our guests, we'd like to just do a little bit of deep dive on you. This is exciting for me because we don't know each other all that well. Definitely past each other and here and over there, and are starting to get to know each other a little bit. But I know very little, and so I'd like to just go ahead and ask you a couple questions and get a baseline for our listeners that are more than 3 now. Rafa, we're doing good, man.
Yeah.
Let's get those thumbs up buttons going. Let's get it going. Hear a little bit about you, and then let's talk shop for a little bit. See what happens when you finish your glass of vodka. We'll hopefully have a couple more stimulating things to talk about. But yeah, give me a background. Like what's your jive? What gets you going, and where are you coming from, and when did you get here, and what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I am the general manager at Racebrook Lodge. It's a family property. I moved back to the area about 10 years ago and was helping out there. Started a farm on the property at that time. And my brother was there working with my father, and he was transitioning out. And I just got more and more involved, and eventually stepped into the general manager role sometime in 2015. And so I've been doing that ever since at the Racebrook Lodge, Stagecoach Tavern, and running events and all kinds of gatherings there.
Did you grow up here?
Yeah, I grew up in Stockbridge.
Oh, wow.
I was born in Stockbridge. Interestingly, I grew up in hospitality. My mother's family ran the Red Lion Inn, still runs the Red Lion Inn. And so I grew up running around the halls of the Red Lion as a toddler, and got involved working summers there and stuff like that. Never really considered a career in hospitality, so I never really took it seriously at that time. I was going to go to New York City, work in film, do interesting things, which I did do for a while, but then just kind of burned out on all that, and spent a lot of time in a lot of different places, and just realized that Berkshire's was as good as any other place, and I had community and family here, and a beautiful, amazing property at Racebrook where I could really realize a lot of the dreams and visions I have around cultivating community, creating space for people to play music and dance and connect and gather around a fire and engage with nature and just immerse themselves in nature. And even in the times when I was in New York and India and Greece and different places working in documentary film and doing other kind of arts-based and education-based projects, I always kind of almost reflexively was throwing parties and having events and bringing people together, and it was like the hospitality gene just like wouldn't stay quiet, and there was always something on the side. But when I came back here and I got more involved in Racebrook, I really felt that really as my calling, as to create spaces for people to gather and to connect.
Yes, love it. And that ties so beautifully to what our man said in that little review or comment, just like thank you to the people that are creating these things for us, day in and day out, because you have this vision, you want to go ahead and get it going, and now you're realizing it, and then it's up to us to enjoy it with you, and then thank you to a certain extent. That's super. So do you know my wife, Emily? Like, do you guys have a past together? Because she grew up in Stockbridge running around the Red Lion Inn too. Maybe different floors.
I'm not sure. Yeah, it could have
like
been running on different floors.
Her first job
could have been slightly different
was running
times.
the switchboard, the call board when she was like 14, just like switching, plug to plug.
Yeah, I probably at that time I wasn't like hanging out just below the front desk behind. I might have been like working in the restaurant or busing, or maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know the timeline.
Wow, there's got to be some overlap.
I'm sure there was some overlap and some crisscross. Yeah.
That's awesome. And as you're mentioning film and whatnot, it makes more sense you coming in here and be like, oh, those are nice cameras, which nobody has said that. Even though, it's starting to make more sense.
It's been a while now. I mean, it's been about 10 years since I've been seriously working in that field, and like these look like alien objects right now. So like even from that time, like. So
you did do a documentary when you were in India, right? I remember.
Yeah, that was the project that kind of launched that chapter of my life.
Can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure, it was amazing. It was 2021. It was 2001, right? So over 20 years ago, 22 years ago, 21 years ago, I went with a group of people to the Mahakumbh Mela festival in India, which is the largest gathering of people in the world. It happens every 12 years.
How many people?
It's a Hindu pilgrimage. Estimates range from like one ridiculous number to another, but something like 20 million people like all gathered together in the same place at the same time. And like hundreds of millions of people over the course of maybe 50 million people over the course of a month that the festival lasts. They come and go. They really most of them are just very devout Hindus who come and bathe in the river at a specific time and then just return to their village, because that bath can be, it just improve their lives and their spiritual lives and their rebirth and their karma and all that. But then there's a whole slew of people who just hang out the whole time, like a lot of the ascetic monks, sadhus, Hinduism and all the politicians and gurus and people in between. It's just a big kind of like gangster festival. It's really interesting.
You know my boy Sadhguru?
I know of Sadhguru.
Yeah.
I have not met him in person, but he's one of the few of those gurus that hasn't somehow been discredited by scandals. So
Wait, is that the guy?
I have
is
a
that
lot.
the
I
guy
have a
with-
lot
that
of
has the
respect
whole
for him.
has a whole farming background and has a bunch of different things that he talks about farming. I feel like I saw an episode of him talking to Joe Rogan about farming.
I don't
I don't think
farming,
Sadhguru
no.
talked to Joe Rogan. I don't know. Maybe.
No, he's more in like the yoga practice and like mindfulness and
I swear to God, I'm gonna look.
He
this
does
up right
plant
now.
a lot of trees. I mean, he does do a lot
Yeah.
of environmental work and work with people. And I know that he's heavily involved in planting trees and reforestation and efforts like that.
well, I want to dig a little deeper on India. Yeah, that's
This
my guy,
guy, right?
Sadhguru. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an episode of him with Joe Rogan.
No
It's
way.
incredible. It's
All right, I know what I'm doing tonight.
they go really deep on talking about. I feel like he was promoting some sort of. It had something to do with farming. I think it was related to soil. He was going around the country and talking to farmers and figuring out ways to bring nutrients back to the soil, particularly soil farms that just had been farmed massively.
Stripped.
Yeah, with
exactly.
chemical fertilizers and all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm
it's a
pretty
big
sure
problem.
that's what.
No, he's a guy who I know, or I see as somebody who actually focuses on really important things and priorities and brings attention to the things that really need to happen. And having direct experience with some of these guys, that's fairly unique. I mean, they're like rock stars. They're just a lot of those guys are just trying to do whatever they can do to be famous and get a huge, big following, and like politicians and rock stars.
He definitely has a big following,
Yeah.
especially if it's on the Joe Rogan podcast.
It's for good reasons.
It is. So I spent some time in India as well. And before I left, the guy who I was staying with, he said, if you do not go down to this ashram and spend a week there, you're missing one of the most critical parts of what India is. And I was like, okay, then I guess I'm going down to this ashram. So I hopped on a plane, not knowing anything, signed up for this class. It was a week-long class or whatever. I had to stop smoking cigarettes, which was challenging at the time, but invigorating in other ways. And sure enough, like there's Sadhguru, who I was not at all expecting to see, and like the people that knew who he was had this like presence and like appreciation of something bigger in the room. And people were telling me stories of, oh, I saw him make a lion levitate like 15 feet above the air, and I mean crazy stuff that they were doing. I mean whole week-long sessions of silence, of like you're just in meditation for days and days. And
Isn't there a silent retreat in the Berkshires? I feel like there is one.
In Shelburne Falls, there's a Vipassana center.
in
Yeah,
Shelburne
that was
Falls,
for
yeah.
years. That was my thing. I
right.
went to several of those Vipassana retreats.
So what do you do when you go to one of those? You just
You
don't
meditate
talk
and you learn to meditate, and you don't talk unless you need something.
for how long?
10 days.
10 days without talking.
It's
at
really
all.
good. It's so good.
What does it do to your mind? Like, what did you feel?
Among probably the one thing that I took most from it was learning to understand what was real and what was not real in terms of one's thoughts. Like what are thoughts are actually just noise and what thoughts are actually valid. And I haven't been practicing for a while, so I can't quite tell anymore. But but I remember like getting pretty clear about that.
yeah.
And
What was
I
the
feel like
effect
that's-
and the after effect? Did you feel anything different?
Sure, just a more presence, a clarity of
Right.
purpose.
Yeah.
And just a kind of ability to process information and to keep a level head. But it's that's like anything. It really, in order to sustain it, it requires regular practice,
Right.
regular
Discipline.
meditation practice.
Yeah.
And I have not kept it up. I have fantasized about going back, but with two small girls and a business.
It's
not
hard.
happening anytime soon.
It's hard. So the course I did was called Inner Engineering, which like totally tees up with exactly what you're saying. And we had they were probably like 45-minute practices that we did like in the morning. You're not supposed to eat beforehand. And then again in the evening. And they were like, we want you to keep doing this for 40 days. And if you can get past 40 days, then you've worked it into your routine, you're good. But like, you got to get to 40 days. But I was leaving India to go to Thailand. And so here I am, like, on planes, trying to, like, you know, get into my proper feeling and just, and in airports and riding around on a motorcycle in Thailand, be like, my man, I got to pull over and, you know, do my practice. You know? I think I lasted like 15 days. But I agree with you. Like, it would be nice to get a group of people together that has both. Like that, but in not reality, that's a poor way of putting it. But how can we bridge the gap and find some of that mindfulness, find some of that better practice, and also know that, look, we are living normal lives, and we can do both. Yeah, we can do both, you know, and that would be cool if, you know, a group of us get together, even if it's like once a week, or send out a random little group chat being like, yo, I'm practicing tonight, who's in?
Yeah, I mean they're around for sure. But like, yeah, I don't, folks like you and me, we pretend we don't have time for it. So
yeah.
Let's make some time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, so cool. Film, is that documentary something that I could watch at some
I can
point?
send you a link. It's out. Actually, no, yeah, it's out there. I mean, one of the reasons why I didn't really sustain a career in that field is I would like do something, and then it was just not in my wheelhouse to like really stay on it to get it out there. I wanted to move on to the next thing, and so I moved back to New York, and we opened up a studio, and we did a bunch of projects in documentary film and live performance events and things like that. We started a nonprofit that was focused on using art as a tool, a window into different cultures. So documentary film was the thing I was into, but we also worked with dancers and musicians, and we brought it into some schools also, that concept of working with art teachers and stuff like that. So that was great.
Love it.
But, you know, I ended up just like being behind a desk, just like trying to deal with all the administration, because we never quite could sustain the funding to like really do it for real. So I transitioned out, you know, in the about 15 years ago or so, 10 to 15 years ago. I moved to Greece and did video production there for like 3 years, just on the underground, and then came back here in 2012, something like that.
Sweet. So we kind of came back there around the same time, because I was like 2014. So we're teed up for a conversation here.
Where were you before that?
I was in Marblehead, actually, on the North Shore of Boston for a couple of years, and then when Emily and I decided we were moving, we came back to this neck of the woods. And as I said, she grew up in Stockbridge, and so it felt like home, and glad to be here for sure. So, you know, I no longer have an excuse, because my excuse has always been for the last 8 years, like, oh, well, I'm cooking every day, and so I can't go anywhere for dinner. But now I can. So I'll first apologize for not getting down there sooner. Though I went for brunch a couple years ago.
Counts,
yeah, we had a great time. It was fun. Was there music going on? I think there was music.
It might have been right up until COVID shut everything down. We had jazz brunch every Sunday.
Yeah,
we're working back into it. Actually, Bobby McVitie's was there yesterday. If this is coming out on Monday, it was on Sunday.
Oh, look at this guy.
But there'll be more. But there'll be more coming up soon. Jazz brunches, as well as we're starting to get the programming back up and running.
That's awesome.
Summer and fall.
Well, that's definitely something I want to bring up. Just, you mentioned about curating a space and creating something for people to take that is more than just a product. It's not just a transactional thing. It's fueling people. So I'm curious to know, like, what other things are you working on? What are things that you're excited about, or that you see the Racebrook Lodge as a platform to be able to broadcast, you know, to our community? Because I think that it's something Rafa and I talk a lot about, is activities and having programs and having things not just for tourists, but also for us that are here that want to get out for a date night, for us that are here with kids, and what can we do with our children to continue to stimulate them and not just be school, home, grocery store, home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I touched on, our vision for Brook is really as a place for people to gather and have meaningful experiences and connections. It's great. We have nice, comfortable rooms, and we like to make really good food. But that's the setting, for experiences and creativity and community. So that was what inspired me to really dive in 8-10 years ago, and especially with COVID, I feel like in the last couple of years I've really just gotten a little bit on the hamster wheel of just the administration and nuts and bolts, especially with the labor crisis that's been happening these days. Has been a little brutal with the last year or so. But we're getting it back together. Like, we're bringing the programming back with jazz brunches. We've scheduled several, and I have more in the works, really fantastic live music performances in our barn, which is
Patrick Watson's
fantastic place. Patrick Watson's coming up September 16th. We just booked Sun Little for December 15th. That's going to be great. And some more things coming up sooner this summer. Just posted July 27th, I believe, or is it the 29th? The Friday of that weekend, we are doing an ecstatic dance gathering with an old friend of mine who's a DJ who has this project called Dance Lab, which is all about people coming together just for real healthy deep dive dance journeys. This is going to be together with a Sufi practitioner who's going to lead folks in like a Sufi whirling program that will flow into the DJ set. So that's going to be a really beautiful experience for people to just move their bodies and celebrate in a way that maybe they haven't been so much.
All right, just hold on 1 second. Hey, Alexa, remind me to go to the Brook Lodge on July 29th. Thank you.
That's going to be great. And then, we're going to, dance is really important. We're going to start just having some also more impromptu family friendly dance gatherings out in the field at the gazebo. That's going to be coming up. Local people especially keep their eyes open for that.
Are these events like consistently on Friday nights, or does it vary?
It varies. It hasn't been. We are relaunching the Down County Social Club, which has a certain folklore element of the Berkshires from the last 15 years. It started on Thursdays. We kind of made it not on Thursdays, but we're starting again next week with Thursday nights. I don't have the lineup to announce yet, but Thursday nights, that's going to be happening. The Down County Social Club, also called the DCSC, is our little like subterranean speakeasy space, which throughout COVID seemed like kind of an inappropriate space to be gathering.
For sure.
But now we're getting back into it. It's kind of a legendary space from the, about 15 to 10 to 5 years ago.
The building has a very cool history too. Whenever guests usually go to Brook, they, especially the restaurant, they're offered a sort of a short snippet version of some facts that happened in the past and how.
And some that didn't happen.
Some that didn't, that were
made up,
which are still to this day, I don't know which one is which.
Neither do we anymore. Yeah.
And for folks who don't know, the reason why I'm speaking so much as we is because I did work with Casey at the Stagecoach Tavern for about 4 years, something like that.
Something like that. It seemed like a long time.
I got married. My wife and I got married there, and I think about a year later, I started working there just as a bartender in the beginning, and our relationship sort of progressed to a point in where I was managing the tavern and sort of taking care of the food as well. But anyways,
what's the best way for people to that are listening to this, like myself, that want to be clued in as to what's coming down the pipeline?
On the website.
Website.
We post all of our events. You go
Okay.
to rblodge.com, click on events. You'll
Okay.
see it there. More things coming soon. I do have some more people coming on board, so I believe I will have the bandwidth to send emails.
Yeah.
If you're on the email list, you haven't gotten one in a while, don't give up on us. They're coming.
Yeah.
So that's one way. That's another way. You can sign up for the email list and
Social
you
media
just probably
too,
get one.
right?
Social media for sure, Instagram mostly, and then that kind of reverberates out to other platforms as well.
Yeah.
Just because Rafa mentioned that he got married there, are you guys still doing wedding events and,
Absolutely,
and other things of that sort?
we host weddings up to about over 200 people.
Wow.
Or smaller, we do smaller ones too, but our barn is really set up for banquets of a pretty large scale.
That's so
We've
good
done
to
a
know.
couple. We have like 5 of them this year. Several were canceled also
Yeah.
kind of because of COVID. Some were rescheduled and canceled. It's
Yeah.
been a whole situation around that, but we are doing it. And we've done 2 this year that kind of broke me. But thanks to Rafa came in and like helped out, and that was awesome. But
Are you running
we're
all the
just
event
pulling it together.
coordinating?
I am right now. I'm looking for somebody to delegate that to, and I've had lots of job listings and doing my best to outreach, and haven't quite found the right person for that yet.
Yeah, that's a full-time job.
It's crazy. Yeah.
It's like you think of it as like, oh yeah, we'll just do this instead of that for one night, but it's a lot more.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
lot
No,
more.
if anybody's out there and they like to do produce events and want to work in a funky, fun environment, then give us a shout.
And you guys are doing something together soon, right?
Yes, we are. You can even pull up the dates here. Give me one.
Yeah, Rafa in his temporary bachelor status next month or so has offered up his services to come back and collaborate some more, and we're really excited. We want to bring back when Rafa was running the tavern. He was just really elevated the experience there in a big way, and both in the dining experience and the experience itself in the front of the house, as well as the food. And we were doing a really great multi-course tasting menu, and Rafa's going to come back and present that again for a couple of weeks. So we're excited about
Yeah,
that.
it's something that we used to do in the past. Many different ways that we did this. I'm not entirely sure what the menu is going to be, but there's definitely going to be some items that were there before. We used to do a wonderful ragu, which we called hunter's ragu, with fresh pasta, and had a little bit of rabbit, a little bit of venison, a little bit of wild boar, and it was made sort of in the way that a previous chef that had worked there, Andrea, was an Italian guy that used to work at Fat Duck. And you know Fat Duck, the restaurant in London, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3 Michelin star restaurant. That guy was amazing. He was a great chef. But anyways, he taught me a way to do ragu that was still to this day my favorite.
Rustic.
Very, very much so. And then with fresh pasta, we're probably going to do some oysters. I don't know. And it's interesting because I feel like I'm kind of out of shape of the kitchen. But at the same time, the best menus that I've ever put together were menus that came right after a period of time in where I was away from the kitchen. It just gives me I imagine, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it sort of gives you clarity, as in like, usually you're in it and you're looking at what you have and you're looking at what's selling and you're looking at what, you start getting caught up by the mechanics and the everyday prep and
for sure.
everything else. And then you take a moment to sort of step back. I don't even know if you had that sort of experience with now at Cantina. Do you feel, although you have 2 chefs that are working there now, though?
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Like, so often when you're in the rhythm of it, you need to continue that rhythm. You can't just like stop and start a new tune. So you kind of keep going. Things lead into the next thing. but getting the opportunity to start fresh, which I've now had a couple of times, you know, like, okay, I'm going to have to do full prep for a full menu no matter what. So there's no point in me looking to see what needs to be used. It's all coming in fresh. It's all coming in new.
But I feel that even creatively, especially creatively, the best stuff I've ever put out were things that the best menus I've ever put out were menus that I had spent at least a couple of weeks not having to think about a menu, and then or not thinking about, you know, just something that just came. And I don't know, I feel like the downtime has really benefited me. I got some cool ideas which I'm not going to share right now.
We'll get you back in shape a little bit this weekend when you come.
Yeah.
Rafa had a funny joke I just wanted to put out there real quick because it was fucking hilarious as we were walking up here. And he was like, man, I'm out of shape in a different sense, not, you know, the cooking sense. He was like, I feel like 2 years ago I put on the COVID-19, and this year I put on I don't know what it was. But I hadn't heard that somebody say I put on a COVID-19. That's really funny.
It's been a constant, man. Everybody, you know, like, you know, having, Casey said also, you know, having kids kind of does that to you. You know, you kind of...
Dad bod.
Yeah. It
yeah,
does
big
do
time
it.
dad bod. I'm hungry. Okay, looks like we're having Annie's mac and cheese again.
Yeah, and actually, Casey, on that note, I wanted to ask you, because you grew up here, and you had an experience of growing up here, of growing up in the Berkshires, growing up in Stockbridge. Do you have kids now? You have 2 girls who I know very well, very cute, and how do you see that it's? How do you see? Do you see any differences? And if you see, how is it different than when you were growing up in the Berkshires?
Well, especially, sorry to chime in real quick, but especially because, as you said, you grew up in this industry, and I think so many people that are in this industry always think, like, the best service I can do for my children is to get them as far away from this as possible. And yet, you know, you're back in, and now your kids are growing. Do you live near the restaurant?
We do right now. We actually have a house here in Great Barrington. We've been renting it out since the beginning of the pandemic, because in this time, even like 15 minutes away is too far away, especially with the little kids. So I can be just running back and forth between the family and the property. But back to your question, that's really interesting. I haven't thought about that at all. So I feel like it's totally different. I feel like the Berkshires are totally different now than they were in the 70s and 80s. And I don't know if I can really put my finger on it. I mean, you know, when I was so, but at the same time, the experience of Bani and Aya, my girls, there's a lot of similarities, especially in the first 4 years. The first 4 years of my life, I grew up on the property of Music Inn, which I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Music Inn.
Oh, I am.
It's become, it was on the old Wheatley Estate property in Lenox. And throughout the 50s, it was this amazing jazz center, and that actually made a film about that. Helped produce the documentary film about that has not really been released because of music rights. But back 15 years ago, we made this film about the jazz era of Music Inn. That was in the 50s. And then it evolved into this legendary rock and roll venue and hippie gathering place that my father was running at that time. And so I grew up until I was 4 years old in this environment. And, you know, people were coming and going. There was music everywhere. And I don't really remember much from that time. But, you know, my older daughter is 4 right now. And so this growing up around Racebrook, the pandemic situation is obviously a different thing. But she's had similar experiences of being exposed to music, community, people coming and going, interesting people coming and going. And, you know, the Racebrook is really special. Like, yeah, we're busting our butt, and it's some days, you know, it's really tough. The hospitality, the grind, the restaurant, the hotel thing. But the property that is just inimitable.
Oh, nice.
It's unique.
The word of the day.
Nice.
Word of the day is the number one.
You'll
It's
pay off.
unique.
You said you'd give him $50 if he used it.
Oh,
in
there you go.
And it's just, you know, it's like, and that's what I'm drawn to. I mean, just like, I do love the Berkshires. It's a beautiful place, but for me and my family, and what we want and what we're interested in. I'm not sure I would be here if we weren't at Racebrook doing that, trying to create this place for people to gather and have meaningful experiences.
Yeah.
Amen.
So that's really special. It's great for the kids. I feel like there's good community around Great Barrington. There's good. There's a lot, and like now, like a lot of families are moving here, have been moving here. So we're meeting like new families, new parents, and so I can't compare it's just the perspectives are too different from being a kid perspective to now being a parent perspective.
Yeah.
Everything's a lot smaller.
It seems way different, but it's still the same place with the beautiful natural scenery and arts and culture and all that. So I think that, I mean, the Berkshires, what makes the Berkshires unique, I think is still hasn't changed, which is it's this like rural setting. It's beautiful, but there's also an element of sophistication. You have the cultural venues. You have a lot of like New York City diaspora that's here that brings a kind of certain sophistication when it comes to art and music and what they want in a dining experience to like, you know, nice shops and decor and things like that, which is all very interesting to us, you know, being in hospitality. And so, you know, and being a rural place, but also being very liberal, you know, that's kind of a combination actually we take for granted here, but it's a bubble.
Yeah.
Most rural places, people don't necessarily think the same way a lot of us do when it comes to political issues and things like that. So that I didn't answer your question, but it was a good thing to talk about.
Nailed it.
You did answer my question.
How many days a week are you guys open right now?
The restaurant's open 4 nights a week.
Thursday.
But the hotel's open all the time.
Thursday through Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to add Wednesday once we have the people.
Okay, so let's
and a
talk.
chef.
let's talk about the people. What's the team look like right now, and like what are the components that you feel like you need in order to take it to the next level? And by the next level, I mean getting emails out, you being able to spend a couple hours at a desk and feel good that you checked the boxes, but that you're not drilled to a desk or not able to get to that desk. The event coordinator. Yeah. What pieces do you really think are going to be able to let you finalize that vision that you have?
Yeah, well, number one, and this is in 8 years, we've never quite nailed it and have found like a really good relationship, is a chef, a head chef for the property. So a couple of chefs have come and gone and weren't a good fit. And then more recently, it's just been the challenge. I don't know what the secret is. And our best times actually have been in the last couple of years when we've been operating without a chef, just with like a really awesome team of people in the kitchen, but nobody who really wants to step into that role.
Yeah, that was.
And I mean, Rafa was the acting chef, like for a long time.
Well,
after
that word I feel
Andrea
like
left.
That word is loaded.
It's loaded. I mean, it's so loaded. I mean, what's a chef? What's a cook?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's. We recently had somebody who I really thought was like going to be a great fit, and things were going pretty well, and then he vanished into thin air. And like I'd already been through a lot of drama with chefs, but that was just like and he was not a sous chef, not a line cook. He was supposed to be running things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's number one.
Yeah.
But I've kind of like put that aside for now because it's up to the spirits to make that happen. Like, I'm
there's no amount of Indeed posts that will change that.
But I recently just starting next week, somebody's coming on board as director of food and beverage operations. So logistics, catering, scheduling, stuff like that is I'll finally be delegating that. So that's going to be huge. And then I would like to find an event coordinator and producer to manage not just our like the live concerts and things like that, but also especially the weddings. But also we do lots of corporate groups and retreat groups and wellness groups that come for 2 or 3 days on the property, and we got to feed them, and we have to set the barn up in the way that they need it, and we need to communicate with them and get their rooms ready and all that stuff. So somebody who can take on those duties. We're looking for a bartender. But like those are the key things,
Mm-hmm.
because those are the things that, that are, it's like a full-time job that I'm doing 3 of them,
Yeah.
maybe 4 of them.
Yeah.
So that's, and I'm hopeful. I haven't given up yet. And
Don't give up.
no, and and I'm excited about the things that we can accomplish. That said, I'm super grateful for the people who we do have,
Yes.
who actually we have cultivated, especially through these last 2 years, a really awesome crew.
Yeah, that core team is
And it was
exceptional.
just like great attitude, just really nice touch with the guests. Like everybody, like the number one comment is, even if like some things go wrong, they're always like, "Oh, the staff was super friendly, and that really made it okay."
Typically does make it okay.
Yeah, so I'm super grateful, and don't want to take anybody for granted. And every member of our team now who's been with us for the last 2 years and a little bit longer and a little bit shorter in some cases, but they're just like really stellar people. And so I just feel like add a couple more good people into that mix, and we'll be in great shape.
In your words, what is keeping this? What do you find are the catalysts for this labor crisis that we're going through right now? Like, what is it? What needs to be changed in order to?
Well, so are you talking about? You want to talk about hospitality specifically, or you want to you're talking about in general labor shortage?
No,
Because it's beyond just hospitality.
It definitely is beyond, but I'm curious from the hospitality perspective, because I do think that like food is changing. And last week we spoke to Matt, and the week before we spoke to Mark, and both of them had these stories of being drawn to the Berkshires because of the food ecosystem that was developing here. And now, years and years later, some things have been realized, others have not. But I still think that spark is alive, and I'm trying to investigate and figure out like where are the bumps in the road that are not allowing people to be like, whoa, food is interesting to me. I want to be a part of this movement the same way it drew you back in and it drew me back in, and Rafa's still hooked on it.
Well, we all know that working in a restaurant, especially, I mean hotels too, but restaurants especially, can be brutal.
Yes.
You know, like physically, time-wise, emotionally sometimes, and grueling. So I think that when this is all anecdotal, like I haven't been reading studies on this or anything like that.
There aren't any.
But
Trust
I think
me,
that
I've been looking for
I think
them.
that when the pandemic came, restaurants just shut down, right? I mean, we know that they just shut down completely. People were laid off, and they had time to contemplate their lives.
That's
right?
right.
And they also, were getting some money from the government, so they're kind of okay. And they had the time and the bandwidth and the ability to explore other options for them, and maybe to pursue the things that they always wanted to, that maybe weren't in hospitality, and maybe it was working online, maybe it was creating art or something, or just like getting into finding their real calling. Maybe it wasn't hospitality, or maybe that was great, but they were like, wow, I don't need to go to a kitchen and work 50 hours a week, or or 60 or 80 or whatever.
Yeah. I can be home for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And wow, that was actually really nice.
I was missing out on this. I didn't realize
Yeah.
it. So I think there's definitely that. And then that sustained time that restaurants were closed just gave people opportunity to do that. And I'm all for those people doing that. I mean, that's great. And a lot of them probably found they could make more money also, So I do think that maybe hope is a better word than think, but I think there's going to be all kinds of great people who are discovering that hospitality is their calling, and maybe there's going to be a flow back, but I think we're going to the pay is going to be better. The benefits are going to have to be better. The hours maybe even somehow, will need to be better. I don't know how that's going to work. I hope the prices don't like continue going up like crazy, so it just becomes a luxury thing that only some people can afford. I don't know, but like there's going to be an element of that, or maybe people will just want to be okay to spend a larger portion of what they have to spend on hospitality experiences.
Yeah.
Right. That's a point that I feel like you've made before in our own conversations, as in there's a chance that just hospitality in general, or certain level of hospitality, might become something of a luxury. I can totally see as that being an outcome of whatever it is that's going on right now. I mean, I still haven't figured out what are those people doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the economy right now is the whole, every aspect of it is just a bewildering kaleidoscope. Like, I really don't understand what's going on. I mean, I think some people think that they do, but it's just so complex. And
I hope it doesn't turn that way. I mean,
too.
something I've been like looking at is how do you create the normal restaurant? Because I feel like it used to be the case that it was restaurants and fancy restaurants. And we've really blurred the line with a crave towards quality and new things happening where now, you know, like, is the Racebrook Lodge a fancy restaurant? No, but are you just like a neighborhood restaurant that, like, you can go and get a burger for $10, like, with a family? No. And Cantina's the same way. Like, we don't have white tablecloths, and we don't use a crummer to pick up your stuff. But, you know, we're serving you a pasta or this. Like, it's nothing, but it's more on the expensive side. But there's reasons for all that. So I'm curious to find out, because so many people don't want our community to turn into this place of just fancy restaurants where it's just for the tourists, right? Locals can't go there. Nobody goes there. Nobody goes there. Nobody goes there. But what are ways that we can continue to provide great experiences, great food, without having to go too far in one direction or the other? Well, I guess towards that fancy direction. It's a challenge. And, you know, as you mentioned, the long hours is a thing. That's another thing I keep thinking about. You can't change the hours. I mean, unless we do a cultural shift where it's like, hey, dinner service is from 4 to 7. Like, it's always going to be a late night thing. And as I was looking at the projections for Cantina and trying to figure out, is it possible for me to get everybody to 40 hours a week? And like, certainly for cooks, it's challenging. Like, it's just not enough time to get it done unless you're putting people at 3-4 days a week to get to 40 hours, which is a tough thing. But I don't see an alternative. So we're going to need those people like Billy that want to be night owls, that's when they do their work, that they get that done. I mean, Rafa, weren't we talking about like making a great lunch restaurant? Like, the days of like of having like a lunch date of like, hey, let's go out to lunch. Not let's grab a sandwich, not this, not that, but like, yeah, I'm gonna have a glass of wine and a pasta and a salad for lunch today. Yeah, and then I'll have my Annie's mac and cheese.
That sounds pretty fancy.
It does sound pretty fancy. Does anybody want to pay, you know, $30, $40 for lunch? I mean, I feel getting gouged when I get a sandwich anywhere around here, but I know they're not gouging me. It's just the cost of doing business these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's like, again, we need to, whether, even if we're paying folks a little bit more, right, or a lot more, you know, if I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but like, when we only have a certain number of people, we have to bring back our capacity, right? Limit how many people we can seat.
Yes.
And then the price goes up, right? Because you're only doing so much volume. You can't rely on the volume anymore.
Yes.
Now that has worked out for us in the last couple of years. I'm not like, we've become a little bit more exclusive, and it's actually been, I'd say the tavern itself, the restaurant, has been more sustainable, more, I guess, profitable. I mean, we look at the whole property is you know, it's all combined. But the food and beverage, the tavern used to be up until 2019 was like a drag on the business as a whole. We, you know, brought in some better guidelines and practices, and then in COVID, it was kind of a result of not having enough people, so we just scaled it back.
Yeah.
And that actually worked out a little bit better. It was just more manageable, especially without enough people to really manage it, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I've always thought there's a bell curve.
Right. So it was kind of a sweet spot
Yes.
for us. We became a little fancier. I mean, we actually refined the experience. Rafa really led that effort, but we did refine it. We made a better experience, but it costed more. And we very rarely got complaints about the prices in those times. And so that was nice. I would love to also, the tavern is really special for that. Like, it's nice to have a really elevated experience, and if it has to cost a little bit more, then I think that's okay, because you're creating real memories, and it's a place that people go for a special occasion. And if our capacity is reduced, then we don't need 100 people.
Yeah.
If we have 50 people, that's good.
Yeah.
Even 40 people on some nights, because we might only have 2 people in the kitchen and a handful of people in the front. That said, we have a lot of great space, a lot of awesome outdoor space.
Yeah.
So I want to create. I'm really inspired by the Taco Tuesdays that you've been doing to actually just create a more festive, environment in our outdoor spaces where we have food that doesn't cost a lot and people can just come hang out, have a good time.
I think that is a big challenge, because as we as business owners are trying to figure out what is that sweet spot, and over the years at Cantina, I was just getting jazzed by the cover counts. I'm like, push harder, like add another table, and like telling my host, like, don't turn anybody away, just figure it out. Like, I want to see record-breaking numbers. Like, let's go. But then realizing, like, okay, now we need 3 hosts, 3 bartenders, 8 cooks, 4 servers, 2 bussers, and like it's out of control.
You got to manage all those people.
And you got to manage all those people, and so we just tried to figure out where is that sweet spot, like where can our team work most cohesively, most efficiently, and still provide the greatest experience, because I don't want to have 200 people there and half of them are getting a subpar meal for one reason or another. But in doing that and scaling that back, you start to figure out, okay, what's working, what not, and especially for you, similar to me, like we built this huge deck so that we could accommodate for the volume. And then all of a sudden I scale it back to I'm only doing 50 covers a night for a tasting menu. Now you have this vast open deck that's like empty, and it feels like maybe we should start like rolling tumbleweed across it just for some entertainment, and even now, we didn't put the full tent up, and on a nice night, there's all this additional seating out there that people are like, why aren't you seating there? And it's like, no, we're trying to solidify what our bandwidth is as a restaurant. We have 6 burners on the stove, and yes, we have this huge lawn and whatnot, just like you guys have these different rooms and these different areas and different bars going on. But you can't, from the consumer vantage point, they're like, why aren't you doing more? And so many things, and we talked about this last week actually, is the decisions we make are made intentionally. Right? You didn't choose not to open that room up tonight just to be limiting and be problematic. There was a reason behind that, because if I see people in there and now my busser isn't noticing whose water's where, and you're sitting over there being like, I can't believe we haven't gotten more water. So you sucked it all in. But not everybody sees things that way. And it's a challenge. I mean, I remember talking to a friend of mine up at Shire Brewhouse, the brewery in Dalton. And he has this massive space. They must have indoor space. They must have seating for 200. So on a winter night, it's slow. So maybe he has a bartender and 1 server and 1 or 2 cooks. But then it turns out that night is the opening of Batman 3.
Oh.
So he goes from expecting to do 20 covers to now he's got 150 covers. He has the seating for it, so people are just seating themselves because they don't know what's going on, because somebody's running around trying to figure out, oh my God, like, do we even have enough food for this tonight? And now they're all sitting there being like, let's go.
We get that with the Berkshire school parents who are crazy entitled. So it's like really intense.
We'll just sit right here.
Exactly.
You're like, no,
no, they're nice.
You don't
They're like,
it's
this
quite
place is
funny,
rustic. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely a challenge, and it's something that I think we're all trying to figure out. What is that new normal for our businesses? What makes the most sense for our businesses? And I hope that all the customers and supporters of us realize that we're doing this to make the experience better for them. It's not to make it easier. It's not to make it more profitable. Like, I just want to put more money in my pocket. It's what works for me, what works for my employees, and what's going to work best for you, with those things oftentimes being fixed. If it was as simple as like, oh, I'll hire 1 more server and then we can open up an entire room, or I'll hire another bartender and then we can have a whole separate thing. Sure, you'd do that, right? Of course. But sometimes there are limitations that go deeper that you have to make decisions, in one regard or another. And I think that's an evolving thing that we're all going through right now. So
I remember talking to somebody, I don't remember who it was, but whoever that person was said, you know what the Berkshires really need? A university. That's the
university?
Yeah, big university. That's the only way we're going to be able to staff the restaurants.
Let's open up a university, Rafa. Forget that lunch place.
That's it. You can fix it right away.
First, you get the university. Then you get the lunch place. Then you get the motherfucking respect.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
That's easier said than done.
Spend your time and effort, but sure.
Let's shoot a promo for Berkshire University.
Yeah,
you
let's
know?
do it. Gray Barrington University.
Do it like the fire festival.
Yeah.
Come to Berkshire University.
GBU.
Casey and I had this ongoing joke for a long time because there were, when you find yourself in a situation where you have an event or a group of people that's were coming to you, and you just do the numbers. I got 2 people against 400K. We had an ongoing joke for a long time that we predicted many of the events that we were going to have as becoming a fire festival kind of event.
Oh, for sure.
But they never did.
There are times that you just look at it, it's like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but let's do it. Luckily, we never had anything remotely close to that. But
yeah, you always had enough ham and cheese sandwiches.
well, you just have very, very people that are willing to work very hard. That's really it. I mean, the staffing issue is also. I feel like there's a parallel to the amount of like if you go to CIA or you go to a culinary school, you're gonna probably end up at a really nice restaurant, working, probably cutting vegetables for a long time, and you're gonna try to climb your way up to, I don't know, chef de partie or something like that, and then make your way up. There's sort of like a path, right? And then the institutions that will staff people like that are pretty much set. And there's a particular type of restaurant that will attract a particular kind of talent. And it's interesting because people that work at those restaurants don't make more money than people that work at the restaurants that you both run. They don't
Depends where they are, but not standard.
In general,
not like quality of life.
Even in New York City, a chef de partie isn't going to make a hell of a lot more money than a person that works in the kitchen in the Berkshires.
Not anymore, for sure not.
Yeah, but then there's this discrepancy between the amount of in the case of particularly front of house staff, there's a discrepancy between the amount of effort or I should say like education that you need to have in order to get started into that, and the I don't know, it's like a lot of folks that I feel like ended up leaving the hospitality industry left because they found a way to make more money or make the same amount of money with the same set of skills. Because a lot of us, like I went to music school. It's like I didn't learn anything about hospitality outside of just being in it. There's no school for hospitality in general. It's outside of, CIA and some other places like that.
Yeah, in Great Barrington University.
Well, yeah.
Class of 2026, let's go.
Well, that's a different conversation that we were going to have at some point. But, I feel like a lot of those folks just found a way to make their living outside of hospitality in a way that didn't require them to have a degree in the thing that they were trying to do.
Do you think if you put up a job posting saying hiring chef and hiring bartender, and you said name your salary?
That's an interesting one.
Like,
might get a few more inquiries. I don't know that it's going to make a huge difference. Because a few more inquiries can be all
we're all talking about inflation right now, and I'm not totally following I don't like to follow news all that much, but I follow ESPN, and free agency just started in the NBA, and I'm noticing inflation just by the fact that these guys are getting ridiculous contracts. I mean, like way bigger now than 2-3 years ago even. You know, Kevin Durant signs a contract 4 years ago for $32 million, and now Joe Schmo is making $45 million on a 6-year deal. Crazy amounts of money. And I'm curious to know, like, if you interviewed somebody and you were like, look, you tell me your salary, and then we'll interview you, and we'll decide. You know, we'll do a stage day, we'll check it out, and we'll decide if that is because people should be making good money. At this point, it is not a laborer's job. It's not just I'm just here to do it. Like, to give those kind of experiences takes a certain kind of person that wants to take care of somebody else. To create great meals takes someone that takes their job very seriously. They're not hacks in the kitchen. They're professionals. And so what is any different between being a professional in hospitality and being a professional in tech or in finance or in something else? And why can't we start to realize that, you know what? It's no longer about looking at it in the macro or micro, small of being like, okay, $12.50, $12.75 is minimum wage, so we're going to put you at 15 versus we're going to put you at 20, but really stepping back and being like, what does somebody need to make in a year for this to be sustainable? And when you look at it from that far out, and that's what I had to do with this new tipping model that we took on, is I essentially had to step so far back that I was figuring out what they were going to make in a year. And not these variables of like, yeah, I'll bartend here and I'll make good money, right? Yes, you'll make good money. Cool. But what do people need to make? And the number is surprisingly larger than anybody thinks. And I bet, in fact, who the fuck was I talking to about this? Somebody was telling me, okay, customers. I had dinner with customers recently that just got back from this island up in Canada. Northern, way out there, fishing town. Anyway, this woman buys this hotel from this island and kind of turns it into this eco lodge. And on every menu or every coffee or every thing, she's employed the local people to boost economy on this island. And each item tells you, based on that cost, that this shirt is $40. Here's what it pays for. It pays for one person to be farming the cotton, pays for one person to refine it at this much. And it really gave you this lens to hold on to. It's like what you were paying for. It's more than a t-shirt. And so I'm curious to know if on a menu it said like cacio e pepe, like $22. Like this pasta allows us to pay this person. All of a sudden, like $22 is like, okay, yeah, no problem, take my money. And they're like, well, what do people need to be making right now? It's a lot.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's interesting. I have asked folks that question in two contexts. One is when I'm interviewing people, I will just ask them, what do you need?
Yeah.
And that's where I start. And, you know, interestingly, they've come back to me with what I thought was a reasonable amount. But then when I actually made the offer, in a couple of cases, they didn't take it.
Yeah.
So, and I made the offer was a little bit more than what they said that they needed.
Yeah.
You know, so that's an interesting anecdote. There's been 3 instances of that in the last 6 weeks.
And do you think that's because somebody else offered them more?
Could be. They didn't specify. I think it may be that they got the same amount, but doing something less demanding. Or other, I mean, one of them when elaborated said, I'd love to, but it's just not fitting with my life and this and that. Like, but I, you know, but I was like, they were clearly excited. They told me how much they wanted. I was like, okay, this is going to be great because that's reasonable and like this is really important. So I'm going to go for it. The other context is with, and this is a conversation I've been interested in having with you, but in thinking about and talking about, as you mentioned, a new front of house compensation, tipping policy, et cetera. because I am really interested to transition out of the tipping model completely, or to like almost complete. Like people can still tip, but I really want to get to the point where there's no expectation of it, that the servers are making an hourly or even salary that is just meets their needs, you know, and it's just a professional, like you said, just like a professional thing where they're not relying. I'm not relying on the customers to pay the servers, and the servers aren't relying on what mood the customers might have been in that time, and to meet their needs. But I've asked servers, hey, how much do you need? And I haven't been able to get an answer.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting.
Well, I also found it interesting when I was hiring. I asked people like, "What are you accustomed to making?" And these are new people that have never worked with me before. $250, a night. Okay, that's good to know. But then, how do you aggregate that over the entire year? Is that a good night in the summer? Is that you're making $250 5 days a week? Multiply that by 52 weeks a year. Is that what you're...
As an average, that would be a lot, right?
That would be a lot. But it's hard. I don't think servers and front of house people that are coming from a tip model really, unless you're one of those guys. I worked at a restaurant 1789 in DC where the entire front of house staff had been there for 15 years. Like it was the same group of people. They have 4 outfits that are exactly the same. That's what they wear to work. They do their job and they go home. And they could probably tell you based off of the data of the last 15 years, I expect to make X in any given year. But for someone that is, younger, getting into this industry, being like, yeah, okay, you're going to pay me $3.75 an hour or $4.50 or whatever tip minimum wages these days. I don't want to make tips. And tips have always been, when you're young, you're like, oh, you want to be a bartender, you make tips. Like, don't be a busboy, don't be a cook, don't be a dishwasher. You want to be where the tips are. That's where the money is. And I think that, especially as we were starting this whole thing, having those conversations and really looking at it from a bird's eye view is challenging, but is important to figure out, cool, my rent is a fixed cost. Like that's not going to change. My cell phone bill is my car payment, fixed cost. But to have a variable such as tipping that can alter, it's snowing, you show up to work, you make less money. It's too hot, it's raining, you make less money. Like there's just so many things.
But things are going gangbusters, you make a little more.
You make a little more.
Make a lot more, but that might, I still don't know how much you're going to make.
And I would argue that just from the nights being busy where somebody sees like, oh, sweet, I made $400 in tips tonight. Like that as a concept keeps them coming back because it's possible.
It's like gambling.
It's gambling. You don't know. And yet you're like, it's possible. Like let's do the dance again. I'm even at the point right now where I don't feel like I have enough data yet we've been open, 6 weeks, something like that. I still don't feel like I have enough data to really understand if it's working or not within the business model. I mean,
how long were you closed for? Like when did you shut down?
We shut down in July last year.
So about almost a year.
Almost a year.
And then when did you start the 22% surcharge?
Memorial Day weekend this year when
you reopened.
When we reopened, yeah. It was
and I'm just really curious because I did a very similar thing, but we just built it into our prices.
Yeah.
Do you think? And I haven't I feel like I'm more sort of ethically aligned with the way that I'm doing it, but I feel like your way might be better for business.
So you just raised your menu prices, but let people continue to tip.
Well, we wrote on the menu that the tips are not we don't rely on them in the same way.
Gotcha.
But if they're experiencing really exceptional service, that they're still welcome to, and they still do. And there's been some friction with the service staff with that language on the menu.
Yeah.
Certainly they've wanted me to remove it.
Yeah.
But then I say, would you rather be at $7.50, an hour and just get the tips?
Yeah.
And so we've come to some I don't know if it's agreement, but
because they're making less money than they think they could be.
They're making more money than they used to.
They are.
Even when you put the hourly and the tip together.
Yeah.
But like I said, I do want to move. I would like to be paying them enough Like I'd like to move in that direction to where they don't, like any tip is just bonus. It's really nice, but not needed. But I feel like what you've done is similar, but just a different structure. And I feel like when I go and I see that the taco is $16, it's not really $16, right? It's 22 or something like that, or 21. I'm just curious what your thinking was that what made you want to go that way, because it really is just like raising the prices 22%, but it allows you to post a price that's less.
It's a value perception thing for sure. I mean, I think about this all the time when we're doing events. Would people rather see an itemized invoice of each thing that they're paying for with a smaller price and being like, oh my God, there's a lot of things. Can we cross any of these off? Or would they just rather know straight up, it's going to be $100 per person. That's it. You're all in. Like that's all you need to know. Or would they rather see the bar is going to cost this, the food is going to cost this, dessert is going to cost this, there's a cake additionally, or would they rather have a bundle package? I think that's a psych play. I mean, even myself, I'm a pretty educated diner, but like if I were to go to a restaurant and see the price associated with something as dramatically more than what my perception is of it, it would be hard to stomach versus getting the bill and being like, oh, okay, this part is taken care of, and now I have an option which is totally independent of taking care of people. Yeah, I'm going to leave $20 on top. Hey, thanks so much. Here's a tip. That's what I always wanted. Here's a tip. Not like, hey, here's your wages. I hope your kids are still doing well. But like, here's a tip. The thing that I love about it the most thus far is not that it standardizes the tipping in any way, because we in our history we found that people actually like to tip more than 20% or 22%. And I got one guy that works for me that we call Mr. 35%, because that's how far he goes. That like the value is there of the extra $5, $10, whatever it is to get it to a higher percentage. Like it's being delivered to me. But the thing that I'm enjoying the most is that my staff, for the first time, feels like I value them, that the business values them, not the customer, right? And in giving them a higher hourly wage, they show up to work and they truly feel like they're being paid. Not like, all right, I did my setup and now I'm going to wait, and once the first customer shows up, I'll turn it on again. But I'm going to go back to my phone or go back to this, or it's no big thing. Instead, they're like, yo, I'm getting paid a lot of money right now. I need to keep working. So they finish their setup, and then I'm getting phone calls. Hey, would you like us to go ahead and break the food order down that just got delivered so we can help the chefs out for when they come back? It's all taken care of. I'm like, oh my God, you're offering to break an order down for me? Like, where's this? That's unheard of. But they know it's a collective team, and they know that they're being paid well and that they're being appreciated and their time is being compensated properly. And when you come in and there's only 20 on the books, there's not this like, oh, we're not going to make any money tonight. Like, hey, cut me first. Like, get me out of here. I'm done. Instead, it's like, cool, I'm still being paid to be a professional. I'm going to deliver on that, whether it's 5 people, 50 people, 100 people, no problem. And they all really, like, in some ways are working even better as a team. I've never had like divisions of tips. I always wanted the entire front house to work in an even.
That's how we're doing it now too. Just split
bartender, host, servers, maybe not bussers, but typically because we're
doing the bussers too. They all get the same.
Well,
but they're getting different hourly rates.
Yes, exactly, and we're doing the same thing now. Tips are completely evenly split based off of hours worked. Yeah. We do an hourly tip out, and then I can go ahead and dictate. Okay, this person is pulling more weight and therefore they deserve a higher hourly. Or this person, hey, let's bump you $1, let's bump you $5, whatever it is. And it definitely puts a lot more control into ownership, but again, like
a lot more risk too.
A lot more risk, and you got to see it from, I forget what I was listening to, but somebody on a podcast or a movie or a show was like, one of the biggest mistakes I keep seeing is people don't multiply it out by 365. Like, so often you're like, it was $20. Like, we messed up $20. Or like, oh, we opened this bottle of wine, even though it's like sparkling champagne, and like it cost us, $40, and we sold one glass. It's $20. But But if you multiply that out, it's 365 days a year, or however many days you're open, that $20 is no longer $20. And it works the same way with paying staff, where I'm like, oh, sweet. We had a good week this week. My payroll was $35,000 for a staff of 12. You know, like it works. But then if those numbers are miscalibrated by even the slightest bit, and that starts to trickle. So my hope is that 6 months in, we can do a pretty good review, seeing, 6 months will be, we'll have gotten through half of the winter. So we'll be able to see the height of the season, the lull of the season.
You planning on staying open through the winter?
We're going to remain open through the winter, staying at 7 days a week. Chingon is actually going to move inside and do less of a taco night, more of a Mexican-inspired menu.
On Mondays and Tuesdays?
On Mondays and Tuesdays. So it'll allow them to really do what they love, cook awesome, rich, traditional Mexican food, and not just hammer out tacos, taco. It'll also allow the restaurant to stay open. It'll allow us to have 2 days, where in the winter we don't have the capacity that we do on the normal days, so we'll be able to have 2 of those services and give them a good spotlight. But my hope is that I'll have enough data to be able to go around and sit down with you and show you, here's what it looks like for us, open source. So many great things have happened. This isn't mine. I didn't create this by any means. But I may be crazy enough to try it and know that if it doesn't work, we'll change it again. But hopefully it does, and I can show, hey, I was actually under budget. And if I'm under budget after 6 months, guess what? Bonus season. When was the last time anybody got a bonus in a restaurant? You ever gotten a bonus, Rafa?
Rafa's got a couple.
I've gotten bonuses.
Damn. Yo, to all my previous employees out there, employers out there, and employees out there, my bad. I want that to be a thing that we can kind of talk about together. And I've always thought that we as a group, as an alliance of business owners, can start to dictate the new rules of dining out, especially here in this bubble, in this ecosystem, where when somebody comes up and they go out to dinner, they're seeing the same thing. They're seeing that same verbiage that's on the bottom of my menu, that's on the bottom of your menu. They're seeing it on the websites. So it's like, oh, this is what dining out in the Berkshires is like.
I mean, I haven't been going out. What are other folks doing? You guys know?
Just tipping.
Just the normal.
Most
are we the only ones that changed?
I don't think I know any other restaurants that are applying
Gaskins. I saw it in Hudson at the Rivertown Lodge.
I mean, in Hudson, there's a couple places. And also in North County, I think.
Gaskins is on my list, the next place to go when I can go somewhere. I haven't been there yet.
Gaskins is fantastic. I went to Stissing House last week. That was really good. Beautiful renovation that they did there. Cool. Brand new restaurant. Really, really cool.
Where's that?
Stissing House is in Pine Plains, New York. Yeah, amazing drive.
We went there. We went strawberry picking at Thompson and Finch, and then we went to Pine Plains.
Nice.
Nice. Wholesome
family time. It's good.
Well, I think, I'm sure other people are raising the prices, maybe not so dramatically like we're doing it for this, but to be able to support paying higher wages to the kitchen and whatnot. But the issue has been, in the conversations I've had, as you increase the prices, then you increase the tips. And my goal was to create a little bit more of a balance between.
You want to maintain that value, right, for the customer. Also,
maintain the value, but I don't want to just increase the cook's wages and then by raising the prices, now a 20% tip on a 2-top isn't $20, now it's $40, and now I'm doubling theirs, and these guys only got bumped from $18 an hour to $20 an hour. It's still the disparity is too much. And so we're trying to find ways of overlapping the staffs in a better way to create more synergy as far as this is a total team effort. I mean, the first thing my guy does when he shows up, my host does, is he sweeps the kitchen floor before he even starts the dining room. Hey, coming through, I'm sweeping. Which is that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
I mean, he's a good dude. But you know what? I asked him to. I said, you know what? It's not that hard. It's not going to take extra too much time out of your day.
We haven't had a host in 2 years, so I'll keep that in mind when we have one.
Hey, so how much would you like to get paid? And what would you do if I told you you also had to sweep the kitchen at 3:30? I want $100,000 a year, and I only work
Hired.
Monday through Wednesday. Yeah, I hope it works, and I also think verbiage is a really good point that you made, that like having it right and workshopping that and talking to customers about it, talking to other business about it, and talking to your employees about it, and having that spiel down, because it's been a transition for us. It's inevitable. Like, excuse me, what is this? And there's confusion. Like, do you want me to tip on top of this? And even the first couple of times I saw it as a diner, I had to ask my server, should I be tipping on top of this? Just tell me. Like, I don't know.
But you guys say, you kind of tell people not to, right? Or you say, it's pretty, I only went there for taco night, so I don't know what you do on the other nights. But it's like up there, but like tipping is not necessary.
Yeah. I mean, everybody is totally cool. We're finding that people are tipping somewhere between 5 and 10% still, on average, which is great because it just boosts everybody's hourlies another, couple bucks, whatever it is, spread out among much more people than it was before, than just the immediate, front of house core. But I think that this, just this conversation right here being broadcasted out, I hope will help draw more attention, and don't be afraid to have a conversation, from a consumer perspective, to ask your server or the manager or somebody that you're emailing with about a reservation, and say, hey, how are the tips distributed? And and what is recommended. In fact, I'd like to ask you guys a question. Like, we go out to dinner, the three of us right now. Any restaurant that's doing traditional tipping, and everything was great. Rafa goes ahead and puts his credit card down because he's an asshole and does this whole thing. We're like, come on, let's split it 3 ways, And then the server's like, no, please don't split it 3 ways. I'm the only person working tonight, and I have 5 other things to do right now. And Rafa's like, I got this. So, because a lot of people are still in their old ways of, well, back in my day, like minimum wage was $8 an hour, and you tipped 15%. So I'm just curious. I wanted to broadcast a little bit as far as like what are industry practices as far as tipping goes.
I tip 25% across the board.
Okay.
I usually calculate what 20% would be and then round up a few bucks up. So if it was $80, I'll probably tip $20.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm in a sliding scale, 20 to 25.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation. If there's a 22% box, I'll usually check it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm feeling particularly generous, and if it was something outstanding, sometimes I'm much more generous than that.
Oh, sure, there's definitely times when one can be more generous, for sure. But it's always
particularly
above
in
20.
bars. For me, particularly in bars. I feel like bartenders are the least, even though they're known to making a lot of tips. That's usually bartenders that make a lot of tips are the bartenders that don't live in the Berkshires, because
it depends
we don't
on the
have
setting,
a place where you go in and you get a beer and then you drop a tip and then there's 100, 200 people there. That doesn't exist.
It's an urban concept.
It's like around here we have a group of the bartenders that are in the good positions. They're a group of incredibly talented bartenders. Of bartenders that make very good drinks. They're very creative. They're good in their mixology aspect. They're good in their bartending aspect, in actually bringing and they're also good in their customer service and actual service aspect of it. If I sit at a bar, say I sit at Mooncloud, I would usually tip a lot more than 25%. If I'm sitting with Jesse over at Cafe Adam, or sitting with Ali up in Williamstown, or any other bartender I respect a lot. Mm-hmm. My friend Andre, who actually worked for Brook for a little while, if I sit in front of him and I'm having his cocktails, I will tip a lot more than that, because I feel like bartending is a lot less appreciated it's really cooking, you know.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, certainly there's a handful of those folks who are on the same level as your great chefs or
Right.
and
Yeah.
cooks, yeah,
Yeah.
in professionalism and experience and knowledge.
I've always said bartending can be harder than cooking because it's all active. Kind of like Garmager can be the most intense station because you don't have any ovens or burners to hide behind as far as like, leave this here, it's good for the next 30 seconds, 3 minutes in the oven, whatever it is. Like, it's all active. There's no like, I'm going to pour this drink into this mixing glass and put ice on it and then put it to the side, and in 3 minutes it'll be perfectly cooled and diluted.
Especially bartenders that there are very few around here, but there are bartenders that are around here that you're gonna sit in front of him. Like Billy is a person that I can sit in front of him and say, like, you know what? I read your menu. I've had all the cocktails. You know, give me something new.
What's next?
And he's gonna be like, I got you, bro.
Yeah, he's going to
You know,
stare
and he's gonna look at his bottles. He's gonna think in his head. I sort of had that for a little while when I was bartending. Don't think I have it anymore because I haven't done it in a long time. But you know, it's like you're literally, it's like a jazz musician. You know, you're literally just improvising with everything that you have in your arsenal of licks and notes, and you know, you're putting it together and you're creating something brand new. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You ask a couple questions. You like something a little more sour, a little more boozy, a little more like this, and you know, and out of that just comes something that maybe not even the bartender has ever had before. And I think that's a skill that should be appreciated far more than 25%.
I like it. Back to Rafa, your initial answer to the tipping question, which is something I've kind of like come to like, is doing basic math and then rounding up, and knowing that the difference between, let's say your check is $100, right? So 20 would be a standard 20% tip, and if let's say it was a little more and it was like 22 was the standard tip, I'm like, okay, if I round up to 30, that's giving, you know, closer to a 30% tip. But the difference for me is $8. Now, is $8 going to make or break my bank account tonight? I certainly hope not. Will it go above and beyond for them? Because we've all been on the other side where you look at a check and you're like, yes, 30%. I fucked so hard. This is dope.
Yeah.
You know, like, this is awesome. So, you know, even tonight, like, you know, I went and picked up some Thai food and was just kind of like, looked at it and I was like, look, the difference of $4 is not going to make or break, but it is going to show an exorbitant amount of appreciation to somebody that's doing a really good job. Or maybe not, but either way. My next question is takeout. Any difference in takeout? I know takeout became a big thing. I know people tipped really well, and good for the world for like realizing that was something that they had to do, you know, during the pandemic, and really stepped up, because it would have been just as easy for them to be like, well, I lost my job too, so, you know, I'm not going to tip anymore. Yeah. But for takeout do you guys do takeout at all?
We do.
Yeah. Which is not easy on anybody, right? I mean, it's so often thought of like, well, I'm paying for the service. I mean, this is part of the reason why tipping is such a messed up thing. Are you paying for the service? Are you paying for the fact that your water glass is full? Mm-hmm. Are you paying for the fact that they were nice to you, or that they paid attention to you? Paying for the fact that they may or may not have massaged your back during your meal? Like, what are you actually tipping on?
I mean, I would say their time.
Their time.
Their time. And when you're getting takeout, you're not taking up their time. You're not taking up a table that somebody else could be sitting at.
Mm-hmm.
I do think I generally tip less for takeout.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly with tip, you know, I don't really know. I can't think of a percentage, but it would be. I don't think about it as much as when I'm dining in. I think. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
So you pick up food from Koi. It's $100. Come on, give it to me straight.
15.
All right. So until recently, and by recently I mean like the last 3 years, because everything was a long time ago before Rafa's COVID-19 that he added on. Until recently, I was in the same boat, and that was partially because I was like, yo, I like to tip heavy when I get treated well, and you're going above and beyond. And when I go quick service, you know, I go to a little counter sandwich shop or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, look, you're not giving me that same high touch that I go ahead and go above and beyond for, no question about it. But once we converted the restaurant into all takeout, and it was like all hands on deck of boxing, bagging, creating systems, changing the way things were working, you know, I need this, running it out to people's cars, all the rest. I flipped that a little bit, and I went back to my kind of thought process that we just discussed of like, okay, 15% sounds about right. But like, what's the difference between 15 and 20? And can I afford to go just that little bit extra? I mean, it's harder if you go to, I mean, how many people are spending more than $125 on takeout? Like if you're doing that, you're spending.
It's a lot of people. That would be for a bunch of people. And
it would be for a bunch.
You can afford that.
You can afford it. You know, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody walks into the Stagecoach to get takeout, I don't expect a 20% tip from them. I mean, it's an expensive takeout. You know, our prices are about the experience.
Yeah.
And we don't really reduce them for takeout because it's not a huge volume, and I don't necessarily want to do more takeout. But if somebody wants takeout, they come and get it. I don't expect them to tip on the same level as if they sat down for 3 hours.
Now, here's a question. If you were to adopt my new 20% model, would you waive that on a takeout order?
Would I waive that for takeout order?
Yeah. Because I have it stated.
No, I mean, probably not. I might have to say it's 10% or 50%. I might have a different, so I wouldn't waive it completely. Because, like I said, right now we have the same prices for takeout.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because I don't necessarily want to or have the bandwidth to do more takeout. Now, if in the event that we did more takeout, I would lower the price a little bit. That we did it like we really wanted to do. We like saw it as an opportunity, you know, to really to build more revenue. I would bring the price down a little bit for the takeout because really, part of what people are paying for is the space.
Yes.
And is the effort to like, you know, care for an old property and heat it and
no question about it.
So if you're coming to do takeout, like that's not, you know, you're not taking up that time and that table and all that.
Don't you find that's like kind of hard for people to wrap their heads around though? Of like, I order a burger to go and it's $12. I order it for here and it's $16.
Maybe, but it shouldn't be too hard to help them understand. Like that's, I mean,
I know that.
I don't know. I can't say that we've had people complain about that. Like being like, what? Like I could just take it to go and it'd be less. Like, sure, and I'd be okay with that if that was the case. I'd be like, well, yeah, take it to go. Somebody else can sit in that table and enjoy it. If they don't appreciate the experience, then maybe they should just take it to go.
Well, we experienced that a little bit summer of 2020 after the shutdown kind of had halted, and it was like all outdoor dining, and we wanted to get to volume, and we knew that a lot of people were not comfortable. I mean, nobody was eating indoors, so we only had the deck. We're like, we can do a lot more here, and people will feel comfortable here because there is so much room to spread out on the lawn. So we offered, and the menu was maybe 8 or 10 things, so you could have a reservation and sit on the deck underneath the tent. Or you could order from the trailer that same menu and take it in a to-go bag anywhere out on the lawn. And it was what I really wanted to do was develop 2 different menus so that it wasn't this question of why am I paying the same thing for a different experience, but instead like, look, the burger's just out there and this is just up here, which is what we did last year with barbecue. It's like, look, barbecue's chill, it's on paper, eat it wherever you want, or you can have this tasting menu, it's going to be really expensive.
You have pushback on that?
No, but like we keep talking about perceived value, you know, and people's decision making and their feelings about something just like they happen instantly. And I feel like price variation is something that is harder to digest than just normalizing this is what it is.
I mean, it seems totally reasonable and logical and commonsensical that if you can sit and have your food served to you, that food will cost more than if you get it from a window and sit on the lawn.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that to me, that's pretty
It
straightforward.
it does make sense.
I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, going to the grocery store and cooking your own food is definitely less expensive than going to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a choice you make.
Yeah. We were talking the other day, we're like, what if there were no menu prices? Instead, you just paid hourly for your service. Right? So, like, you sit down, you're a four-top, and it's, I don't know, $30 an hour to sit there.
Oh.
What if you were paying?
Regardless of what you order, though, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I know it doesn't make a lot of sense,
But
but
it's
it
an
was
interesting
like,
thought
what if
experiment.
you were paying for the service? So it's like, hey, I'm going to the show, and this is. I mean, in some ways, I guess that's what a tasting menu is, right? You don't get to choose what you're ordering. It's just it's all standardized. But the last thing I'll mention about the tipping is what Square did for tipping, the POS system.
The check boxes.
Well, the check boxes and the iPads, because again, I go and pick up a sandwich 5 years ago.
Oh, you turn it around. And
Yeah,
you do it yourself.
5 years ago, I ordered a sandwich. You know, as somebody that works in restaurants, I wasn't gonna be in that like,
Sure.
hey, I'm gonna write in a tip on this like authorization slip right now. Maybe I'd
just
stuff
here.
maybe I'd stuff $1 or $2, or like even coffee, right? You go and pick up a coffee. I mean, like once in a while, I throw a 5 in the tin. You know, if I recognize the person's working, yeah, I'll throw something in there. But then Square came out, and it was like, tip, and especially for coffee, where it's such a low price thing of like, you know, okay, I mean, it's not low price anymore, but like, you know, $3-4. It's like, would you like to tip $1, $2, or $3? And I'm like, damn, this is expensive fucking coffee. Yeah. And then you feel this amount of pressure of like, okay, I'm being presented with this. I don't want to be the guy that hits no tip. But I'm curious to know from those businesses, are they relying on tips to support their employees? Or are those employees, like, when did the shift happen? Where it was okay to
I would say
rely?
it's probably helped them attract people in this time.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure those people are making more money than they were 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? But that's just how it is.
Yeah, whenever I get one of those, I feel like my ethos with tipping is usually related. It's somewhat of a guilt trip, very quick mathematical equation that happens in my mind, and where I look at it, and I think, you know what, I've been there. I'll put $2. Oh, but the coffee was $3. Yeah, whatever. I can afford the extra $2.
Oh, yeah, tipping percentages on coffee are sky high compared to fine dining.
I mean, I always, 100% of the time, the cheaper the food or coffee or whatever it is that I'm getting, the more I'm tipping.
Well,
In terms of
percentage-wise, sure,
Yeah.
but you don't know as a number of dollars. It's probably
number of dollars, obviously not, but I don't know actually. You know,
But-
if you
but
add up
but
the
that
amount of
makes
times that I
sense.
go
That
and get a
makes sense.
coffee and go and get a set when I go to, I love having sandwiches at Taft Farms, and every time I go there, the sandwich is like, I don't know, $10. And like, I always leave a $5 cash tip to the lady that works there.
But they don't have a Square system that like offers
No.
you a tip. Right. So that's another interesting thing. Like the bagel shop, for so long, they didn't have the ability to like tip. So I go to Bazillion's and get a sandwich, and they flip the screen to me, and now I'm tipping. And then I go to the bagel shop. Nobody asked me for it. There's no nothing. Like I don't carry cash ever, really. Like.
Right, yeah, I remember having that issue in the past where I was like, okay, can I tip you? It's like, oh, you should have told me that before I swiped your card. Yeah. I've been just carrying cash now lately.
Well, long story short on it, I do think that if you are a supporter of the business, I give full access, and I want I want the supporters to understand what is right, and I love when people come to me and they're like, just tell me what I should do. I'm cool to do whatever. You know, like, do you want me to tip $5? Do you want to tip $20? Like, just, I want to do right. And so many people oftentimes get, I don't know what to do. But have the conversation, you know. Even if it's a follow-up. Hey, just had dinner at your restaurant last night. It was fantastic. Had a really great time. I'm curious to know, you know, it said tip is included, so I left $10. I'm curious to know, is that on par with other people? I wanted to make sure that the employee knew that they did a great job, but also I think talking about it is super important. So, Casey, are you cool if somebody sends you an email that you may or may not have time to respond to?
Of course. Yeah, I would love to respond to that.
Okay.
Yeah, those will go to the top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was, I think we covered a lot, boys.
Yeah.
I think we've done a
Thanks,
good
guys.
job.
Casey, thanks so much for being here. Definitely check out, can you give them the website real quick again?
rblodge.com. Racebrook Lodge.
rblodge.com.
Just Racebrook Lodge on Instagram.
Racebrook Lodge on Instagram.
Stagecoach Tavern as well. And again, I'm going to be there on the 30th and 31st of this month doing a probably 6-course tasting menu with some wine pairings, bringing back some of the stuff that we used to do. Definitely going to be great. I'm also going to be there on the 6th and 7th. So if you're around, definitely come by and come and check it out. It will be quite nice. Very delicious.
Very nice.
Cool. Thanks again, Casey. Thank you,
Pleasure.
everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you, Casey.
Again, you can check us out on YouTube and all the other Apple Podcasts and Spotify, all the other platforms that you can listen to podcasts on. And that's it.
Yeah, lastly, definitely give us a follow on Instagram, because in the upcoming weeks, I want to start to do some polling from our viewers on other people that they're interested in hearing from. And we have a huge list, but definitely are down for some feedback as far as who, what. We can't change the where, the why we can change, and
What
when.
is Bunch?
What is Bunch?
Yeah, why is it called Bunch?
So Bunch is a community of like-minded individuals that give a fuck, and
This is the podcast.
it's kind of, you know, an umbrella for a number of things that we're working on. But this podcast is meant to really just be a conversation for us, by us, and just opening up things that, like I just said, that aren't talked about enough, so that we can create a little bit more shared awareness and continue to enjoy the things that people like yourself are working so hard to try and provide. So, thanks for being part of the bunch. Take care, y'all.
Peace.